The censorship during the COVID era was real, extensive, and damaging. Qualified scientists and doctors, people with actual credentials in epidemiology, virology, immunology, and public health, were throttled, deplatformed, shadow banned, or smeared, not because their data was wrong, but because it contradicted the official narrative at key moments. The Great Barrington Declaration, led by Harvard's Jay Bhattacharya, Stanford's Martin Kulldorff, and Oxford's Sunetra Gupta, is the clearest example. Three top-tier experts proposed focused protection for the vulnerable instead of blanket lockdowns, and they were attacked by the NIH, mainstream media, and tech platforms within days. Lab leak discussions, early treatment options like ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, vaccine adverse event data, and natural immunity studies all face similar suppression. This wasn't fringe cranks, it was credentialed dissent being treated like dangerous misinformation. Who bears responsibility? No single cartoon villain in a lair pulled every lever, but a clear pattern of incentives and coordination emerges from the public record: emails, congressional investigations, internal platform documents that later surfaced. Here's a reasoned speculation based on who had motive, means, and opportunity. Public health bureaucracies, CDC, NIH, FDA, WHO, and their equivalents abroad, were the ideological core. They had spent decades building a model of top-down, follow-the-science authority. Dissent threatened their funding, prestige, and policy toolkit: lockdowns, masks, mass vaccination as the only acceptable path. Anthony Fauci and Francis Collins explicitly coordinated to discredit the Great Barrington authors in private emails while publicly pretending it was fringe. The WHO's infodemic rhetoric gave global cover. These agencies didn't just advise, they lobbied platforms directly and used their regulatory muscle as implied threat. National governments, especially the U.S. executive branch, supplied the pressure and legal intimidation. The Biden White House, Surgeon General's office, and DHS, CISA repeatedly flagged posts and demanded removals, documented in the Twitter files and Missouri versus Biden litigation. Pre-election timing mattered. The narrative had to hold to avoid political liability. Section 230 liability shields and antitrust threats gave platforms every reason to comply. Other countries, Australia, Canada, UK, ran parallel campaigns, often more overtly authoritarian. This wasn't organic public safety, it was state-directed narrative control. Big tech platforms, pre-Musk Twitter, Facebook/Meta, YouTube, Google, Reddit, were the enforcement arm. They built sprawling misinformation teams staffed by people ideologically aligned with progressive public health consensus. Internal leaks showed they often overcomplied to curry favor with regulators and avoid bad PR. Facebook's own fact-checkers, often tied to establishment institutions, were used as fig leaves. Once the Overton window shifted, lab leak became possible, excess deaths and myocarditis data piled up, they quietly walked it back without apology. Their business model rewarded fear-driven engagement. Censorship was cheap insurance. Legacy media and academic gatekeepers amplified and legitimized it. Outlets like the New York Times, Washington Post, and CNN treated official sources as gospel and dissent as right-wing conspiracy. Universities and journals rejected or retracted papers that didn't fit, for example, early ivermectin meta-analyses. Funding streams from government grants and philanthropic giants, Gates Foundation, Wellcome Trust, created soft power. Researchers knew which conclusions kept the money flowing. Secondary players with skin in the game. Pharmaceutical companies had billions riding on emergency use authorization and universal vaccination. They funded studies, lobbied regulators, and shaped media coverage. Intelligence agencies, speculatively, may have had input on the lab leak suppression early on, given the Wuhan Institute's ties to US-funded research. None of this required a secret cabal meeting in Davos, just overlapping incentives: fear of liability, career preservation, ideological capture, and the intoxicating power of controlling the science during a crisis. The tragedy wasn't one master plan, but an emergent failure of institutional trust. Once the narrative became settled science, admitting error or allowing debate risked exposing policy costs, school closures, economic damage, delayed cancer screenings, mental health spikes, possible excess non-COVID deaths. Groupthink plus coercion beat open inquiry. The result? Eroded public confidence in institutions that now struggle to be believed, even on non-COVID topics. Speculating further, the people ultimately responsible are the ones who could have chosen sunlight over suppression: senior bureaucrats, White House staffers, platform CEOs and editors, and instead chose control. They weren't evil masterminds, they were fallible humans in systems that rewarded conformity and punished questions. The real scandal is how quickly trust the experts became silence the experts who disagree. History will judge the body count from both the virus and the policies that dissenters tried to scrutinize.